Sorry for the abrupt disconnect there. Technical issues and user error. Okay, so the idea is that our actions, what they're calling legal consciousness, create a larger structural legality, or a sort of a real legal system. These actions can be, quite small in nature, but that the action itself contributes to the larger structure, and it contributes to how we think and feel with others. Now they're going to talk about three. They're going to talk about before the law, with the law, and against the law. And I'll say a few words about those. But I just want to give you a sense of, or at least two ways of thinking about these distinctions. So first, with the idea of our actions helping to create, I used to tell the story of how when I saw in Rwanda that there had been a genocide, how, as I read it in the New York Times as a graduate student in LA, I read a long story, and I just say out loud, "That's a shame. That's a shame." And you can see reactions to this in our discussions of people reading about children in horrific circumstances, and just saying, "Okay, that's a shame." And then you turn the page, and then you go on to the next thing. And in a sense, what that does is it removes you from those events. It's saying, hey, I'm not really implicated in that sort of thing. It doesn't really connect to me. In one of the discussion messages, it even says, that's a terrible thing for them. That ability to sort of separate ourselves from a situation like a genocide in another country, or from a particular case in Florida, is part of what creates a politics around those ideas. The political reality of the genocide in Rwanda was that the United States was not going to do anything, because when any of us even bothered to read the story, we were just going to say out loud, "That's awful," to reaffirm our moral superiority, and shake our heads and go, and then we were going to turn the page and go to the sports section. And you're going to read a story about some kid being suffocated in the back of their dad's truck for a few days, and that Child Protective Services was looking but hadn't called the police, and it'll be like, oh, my. And then you're done. That creates a real political situation. If all of us got out and, I don't know, protested, wrote a letter to the editor, started talking to our friends about it, that would be an action towards making it a bigger deal. Now, whether you could do that yourself or not, I'm not saying. All I'm saying is this: your action creates the larger social reality, and your feeling of distance from those people in Rwanda or from Florida is changed by what you're stating right here. What you're actually doing is as little as possible in those situations. What I was doing with the genocide in Rwanda was as little as possible. That has an effect. That action has an effect. It has an effect upon me, and it has an effect upon the larger world. And we're trying to talk about that action as the foundation. Okay, a little farther now with before the law and against the law. Oh, I'm sorry, the second way. With any of sort of larger social structural things here, the things we consider institutions, and sociologists have a little bit different way of talking about institutions. So it would include the legal system, the educational system, the state system, the government, but also marriage as an institution and family as an institution. Recurrent patterns of behaviors and roles is the way it's usually talked about. You could take what they're doing in this book, you could take any of those institutions and probably find the same thing. So, for example, I think I could go through some of the students so far, and I could find those of you who were before the law, before the prof, with the prof, and against the prof. And you could take it to the educational system as a whole. You could definitely find those who were before the educational system, who were with the educational system, and who were against the educational system that they were in at that time. So the idea here is that, not that you're learning these concepts because they're limited to this one specific class and this specific book, or that I'm going to, keep you on the task of learning this exact book so that you can answer exam questions successfully. The question is, can you use the things that you're reading, that you're hearing, and actually do analysis on the world so that you can actually see these things going on in the world? Let me read a little bit from before. Let's see. Actually, I've got a couple of paraphrases here. The law is separate from normal society. It's authoritarian and predictable. It's objective. You come before the law and you make your case to judges who are wiser, smarter, whatever, and they're supposed to be there, and they're supposed to give fair decisions, and it's supposed to go that way. So for those who would say be before the class, they would expect that, first off, that the educational system is separate from other spheres of life. And I've actually had students, I think even this quarter, who have said, oh, well, back to the real world, as if this weren't the real world, which is funny because it has some real world implications how you perform here. But in any case, they'll tell you, oh, well, that's really just the academic world. That's not the real world at all. Oh, yeah, okay, all right. Your ability to see it that way can make it true for you. You can take it as, oh, that's the academic world. And some people will come to professors and see them as authoritarian, that they should sort of take them down a road and tell them what they're supposed to know. And they'll see it as that it should be predictable. The problem for me, of course, is if I'm not predictable, then I'm at fault because I didn't fall in line with the expectations that things would go in this sort of orderly fashion. Now, remember what they say in the book. No person is just before, just with, or just against. All of us may have some parts of these. We may reside in one of these areas more than the others, but you won't find it like it just totally captures somebody or something like this. By the way, the things I was reading about authoritarian and predictable are all from page 47. Now, when you are with the law, you see the law as a system that you can game. It's not that you just come up and tell your story and wait for a sentence to be pronounced or wait for the adjudication to happen. This is a game. You have to figure out the system, what the system wants, how to play the system, and then you win if you are a good game player. Whereas with before the law, if your story is just and your cause is right, then everything should work out your way. With the law says, well, no, not exactly. You have to get in the game. You're going to need a lawyer that has some contacts. You're going to need some documents and paperwork to support your story. You've got to make sure everybody knows what's going on. You have to make the calls. Now, with some students, just as I have those who are before the law and will say, this is me, please judge me accordingly, I have other students that understand the game. They know how to talk to profs. They know how to get their work done on time. They know what to say, what to do, and it helps them get through. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now let's talk about the last one. I'm just trying to introduce these things a little bit. Against the law. You have students who will come into a class or to the entire college structure and they will see themselves as already behind the eight ball. The professor doesn't like me. I have just a quick word of information. Most profs don't have time to like or hate you. They have a lot of students. They have a lot of responsibilities. And to sit around and figure out ways to screw you over or something like it just wouldn't, whose life is that? But there's an idea that when you come in, oh, he doesn't like me, I did bad on this exam because of this or whatever, and they'll set it up so that they see it that way. Now, here's the important point for all three. Your legal consciousness is your way of participating in constructing legality. Now let's say it for class. Your class conscious, before, with, against, is a way of constructing the legal reality that you will live in. The class reality that you will live in. So you can see people coming to college classrooms feeling like the system is against them, who create a system that's against them through their actions. Not just through their actions, they have to have some help from outside forces often, but they create situations that reinforce their belief that the system is against them. Hear that again. They create situations that end up reinforcing their beliefs. In that way, their actions contribute to their beliefs. You create the things that you think. You create the evidence that you then see. And all of a sudden, it looks like if you game the system, if you play it as a game and you know what you're doing, you'll win. And then when you get the good grade, you're like, hey, I won. And it reinforces, it validates that again. And if you're against the system and you get a bad grade, once again, it just shows that they're all against you. Or if you're before the law and you get a bad grade, you'll say, I can't believe how unfair it was. All of these things are ways of validating your position so that you can then believe in the situation that you yourself has created. Let's talk about it in Katz's terms. You cast the spell, which eventually takes you over. So you get yourself into a situation where you're looking at the jewelry, and then the feeling of needing to take that jewelry comes and takes you over. I feel like Kat should be talking to Lindsay Lohan. She just recently stole some jewelry for reasons I can't possibly fathom, except that Katz has laid it out completely. Your action in that situation can come and take you over. Students can become despondent about their educational situation when their actions are contributing to the situation that they're in and to the feelings that they're having. You and your actions can make it true. Now, I talked earlier about how, sometimes students feel this way towards me, or this way towards me, or this way towards me. There's two ways of seeing that. I'm the same teacher. This is me. Some students, my God, get me out of here, please. Some students are like, okay, whatever. And then some students really dig it. Now, I'm the same person each time. What determines whether or not they like me or don't like me? How could it be me if I'm the same person each time? It has to be them to some extent and the way they construct the world. Now that also goes for me, right? I see students and I have a certain opinion about them that others don't share. Or I say, well, these students don't like me, or these students don't like this, or something like that. And then I create the reality in which I live in that way. I mean, none of us are immune from these things. What's hard to keep in mind is that the things you consider your individual self, your preferences, your feelings, your decisions, your desires, what reasonably seems the case to you, are built from situations with others. And economic positions, structural positions, racial identity, gender are constructed from situations and then become part of a larger social reality. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit more work to get there, but I just wanted to give you an introduction as you went through the next few sections of the text. Good luck.